Hi, Dawn. Okay, here.
Hi, everybody. Hello.
Morning. Hi, Bert. How are you? Who's that sir guy? I don't know. Okay, good morning. We're going to go ahead and call the redistricting meeting to order, September 7th. We roll call, please.
Member Kaplan.
Here.
Member Chavez. Here. Member Krajewski.
Here.
Member Ozog.
Here.
Member Pachowski.
Here.
Member Rutledge. Member Day.
Here. Okay. Is there a motion to let member Desart join
So
via
moved.
Zoom? Motion made by, motion by member Ozog, seconded by member Chaplin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, is there, Dawn, is it family issue or business? No.
It's family. I'm up here meeting my grandson.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So we can put that in the record. Let's see, public comment. We do have a public comment today that I will read. Let's see, redistricting. Donnie, did you read this ahead of time from Edgar Pal? Provide testimony.
You know that.
Subject, Forest Preserve. I was surprised to read in the news recently that the Forest Preserve District wishes to draw its own voting district boundaries. I'm very concerned about this because clearly it is in the public interest for both the County Board and Forest Preserve to have districts that match to avoid voter confusion and to encourage collaboration between elected officials who represent the same districts. President Hebrian suggests that the county board has been resistant to the Forest Preserve's input, but it appears that the Forest Preserve has presented Mary a formal request. Nor communicated directly to the board chairman Cronin, committee chairman Zaire, State's Attorney Berlin. Furthermore, no representative of the Forest Preserve has attended a redistricting meeting to date. Lack of communication in this regard could potentially be causing some confusion between both sides. The Forest Preserve's proposed next steps are quite baffling, and I hope that the County Board and Forest Preserve will work diligently to collaborate on this matter. Okay, and that's all we had.
I'm sorry, Jim, is that the only public comment?
That was the only public.
May I take a look at it because I had to step out for a second?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to chairman's remarks. You know, we had some discussion. I think we've been open on this process with the Forest Preserve, and a lot of members have talked to them. Again, we offered them a seat here. Obviously, it's a county committee. They can't vote, but I've offered it to them. We've talked about it. They want to put an attorney on. Again, that's not my calling attorneys. That's the state's attorney. He said no. I again talked to the president of the Forest Preserve, offered to him or a commissioner a spot here. The offer still stands. If they want to come, they're public meetings. They can come anytime they want. No one's not gonna, I won't not let them discuss and have input. So again, hopefully, you know, we can work through this, but they seem to be going another direction. We have to go in our direction. So we are where we are. Again, thank you. We got all the information on the census. We have Josina in yet or no?
We're having fun.
I'm here. I apologize, my camera doesn't seem to be working.
Okay. Okay, good. We'll go ahead and approval of the June 17th minutes. Second, member Chaplin, second by member Pachowski. Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to purchase requisitions. There a motion on RDC CO 050121 amendment to resolution issued to Greco LLC to provide general consulting matters in the amount of $20,000. Increase the contract through December 31st, 2021. So a motion?
So moved.
Second, member Chaplin, second member Krajewski. Discussion. Questions?
Could we just have an explanation of the increase?
Yeah, Josina, can you hear us?
Yeah,
Yeah, could you give us an explanation on why we're having the increase, please?
sorry. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. The initial contract was based off of doing a map off the American Community Survey 2019 data. So the updated contract is to do it off of the 2020 data, which required an upload of the entire file and data verification processes and uploading it into 2020 geography with 2020 data, where the previous contract was for 2010 geography and 2019 data. So all of that was before we knew that we were going to have the extension of the mapping deadline and the updated data to map on.
Thank
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Member Desart, are you okay with that? I know you had sent a question in today.
Yeah, I did send a question in today. So, no, it still doesn't make sense because now that we have the very updated numbers from 2020, why is it going to cost more? 66.67% more.
Because it's a second round of maps that are being provided.
Okay, so the first round of maps had already been done by your company.
Yes.
Okay, and have we seen those? We as in the county, has the county seen those first maps?
Mr. Chairman, Josina, if I could just do one little clarification here, I think.
Sure, Jason.
What it is the initial data that
Jason, we
she
can't
is
see you.
looking at.
You need to come over and
I'll
Why don't
come
you
back
come back
here, I'm
here?
sorry,
Yeah.
I'll come back here, I apologize.
you're like Oz.
Yeah, I apologize. No, so the initial data for the 2019 is that ACS data that we talked about. It wasn't the
Mhm.
final number. We did do that initial analysis, which you'll see in one of your handouts here, showing us where the 2019 is. It's on the back side of that sheet, so not the one without the map. So that's what she's talking about. What she now is doing with this additional is looking for the 2020 census data. It's a different data set. And Tom and Justina, you guys correct me if I'm saying something wrong here. It's a different data set, and it came out what's called that legacy format, the PL94 we discussed. She had to re-import that, redo the analysis, things along those lines. So that's what the differential between these two is. And that was the reason for it. So I mean, Josina, I believe that's what, if I'm right, that's my understanding of what you did is too. And it's a little over my head, some of the data as well.
Yeah, it's both a whole nother set of geography. The census redid blocks over the last 10 years. So the American Community Survey data that we were looking at before, because that was all that was available, was imported onto 2010 geography. So this was a new import of having to put 2020 data onto 2020 geography, provide updated numbers to you, which you have in front of you, of the 2020 data on your existing districts, and now a process of working with you all to talk about how you would like to see these districts amended based off of the 2020 data to approve a final map.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Zay, and that makes a lot of sense. However, Jason, I'm frustrated that that information that you passed out in person today wasn't in the board packet on the redistricting committee information. That should have been in the board packet so we could have previewed it before the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And when we talk about drawing maps, I think the only maps we've drawn so far has been what we have right now, our present map. So it's not like any new maps and everything, you know, have been out there that nobody's seeing. It's just what our maps have been. So now when we move forward, obviously we'll have to move forward with new maps. So any other questions on the change order?
Can I just comment on what you said, Chairman? You said that the information that it has been handed out in person is old information and nothing we haven't seen before. So then that raises the question back to, so what's the new information that Grapple has provided to DuPage County?
When she had talked about drawing the maps, remember we drew a map because we weren't sure, we had to use the ACS numbers.
From 2019, right?
It was basically analyzing that and putting it into the current geography that we have for our current districts. So now we have the census data, we have the same geography up for the same districts. Now we have to look at, because there's some deviation, and we'll talk about that today.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the contract on the increase? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay, we'll go to discussion. Redistricting data update. Jason, you want to talk about this? Obviously, you have the handout here. We got this late last week. Deviation is out there, you can see. District 2 is high, District 6 is low. So we'll talk about it after he talks about it. But I'm thinking at some point we want to get the districts closer than what they are. I think, Bert, legally we could do this, right? I mean, if we had to, within the deviation amount.
Yes, Chairman, you could do this just as it is now, but ideally you'd like to get closer.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll make a few comments, and I think Josina might have a few things to lump on. So Josina, feel free after I say a few things. As you see in front of you, this was done by Josina actually, and it's the tobacco, our normal actual geography map there, but using the 2020 census data, it has the breakdown by district as well as some of the demographic information. And as Chair Zay has indicated, you know, there's a couple districts that have 4,000 plus more people, some with 4,000 less. And my understanding and direction from this committee, even at the start of this, was to be as close to zero as possible deviation, but obviously probably it's not going to work out perfectly to a zero amount. But based on that, then as well, Josina broke down the data on the backhand side, and this again is the district population with a little bit more of the demographic information in comparison between 2010, the ACS data, and the 2020 census results. So that is what we have been able to have, or we've done so far, having the data. Now that we have a little bit more concrete information, I think, and that's what I think we were all looking for, was more concrete information. We can get into the actual process from there. But Josina, did you have anything to add to that?
Sure, I could provide a little bit of overview of kind of what are the main approaches to drawing the map. The first, right, is looking at overall population. So DuPage County had a slight increase of about 15,000 people overall over the last decade, which means your district size will grow by a few thousand each. Within that population change, you have had an increase from 30 to 37% of your minority population. So the first layer is making sure that you draw equal population districts that are compact and contiguous. The second is making sure that you're in adherence to the Federal Voting Rights Act, which is why Bert is here. Based off of your current demographics of the 2020 data, you cannot draw a federal voting rights district. So you do not have to address that particular issue. And the third, which of course is much more complex in that I'll be wanting to hear more from you all, is of course the communities within DuPage County have changed significantly, both by municipality, but also just the culture and how people relate to each other. We want to draw districts that make sense in that respect as well, respecting communities of interest, looking at the changing demographics, respecting dynamics between urban and suburban. And so that's the process that we'll be going through, knowing that we can meet equal population. I've drawn districts down to zero deviation. I'm happy to do that if that is the standard that you all want to meet. We do not have federal voting rights standard issues with your current demographics. And so it'll be a conversation with you all about whether the current district boundaries meet what you feel like is the best interest of the people of DuPage County, or if there are adjustments that we should make to make sure that communities are cohesive, that districts are cohesive. And so I look forward to working with you on that process.
Okay, any questions for Josina?
Yeah, Jim, I
just had one. Okay, go ahead, Brent.
So I thought back in 2010, under the law, that it was required to be within one person of each other.
Yeah.
So how come the 2010 population data, it doesn't reflect that? It's got districts 1 through 6 with different numbers there, which would affect then when we subtract 2020 or increase or decrease. Those I thought would have all been with, because I remember last time and the law changed afterwards, we had to go down an individual street and within one vote. So therefore, those numbers in the 2010 population should all be within one vote of or one person of each other, but they're not. And that's what we're using as the baseline to compare it to.
Josina, I'll look to you on this. I know that was your data.
So back in 2010, the law was in the county, when we did this last time, we had to be within one person of each other, and we spent a lot of time just making sure that balanced out. And every time we moved the line, it had to adjust something else. So therefore, I would have thought our 2010 population for districts 1 through 6 would have been identical or one off, but yet they're not. They're within like 1,000 of each other.
So this is the file that I was sent. You know, sometimes when you the smallest geography that the mapping software uses is a single block. So sometimes You guys split blocks in the redistricting process that my program isn't going to 100% pick up off of old data and old geography. So I think that that's what accounts for the slight differences. But I can look back at what your previous numbers showed and look at the split blocks and readjust. But this is based off of the shape file that I was sent.
That makes sense, and that it just begs difference that these numbers are off, but those are our baseline that we're comparing the 2020 numbers to that actually show us how far we're off, so.
And that's why I would also caution you not to take the 2019 numbers. This is also why it was so much work to do the 2019 numbers, is that the 2019 geography, the smallest geography it comes in is a block group. So there's a bunch of algorithms that we use to come to the best disaggregation down to the block level, which is what your geography was drawn to. And again, additional split blocks. So that's why I was really relieved that the state provided that extension to use the 2020 geography and the 2020 blocks so we can be as accurate as possible on the updated geography.
On your 2020 census data where you show us our deviation in population from whatever 140 to 4,000, that's compared to the 2010, which those numbers aren't accurate. They're off of maybe a few hundred up to maybe 1,000. So
Yeah, I would need to sit down with the person who drew your last and understand how they split blocks, which I haven't had access to do.
But I don't know if we want to do, I mean, because that may change those numbers slightly.
Well, I think once we get in to start looking at it and we do this new geography, I think the numbers then will automatically update, you know, once we start moving the lines.
Comparing them to numbers that are off, because we didn't get the original numbers because we did split blocks. Her software doesn't do split blocks. So therefore,
Well, I think
We can split blocks, but I would need it at your direction to split blocks. Right now, they're whole blocks. And so the new map that we will draw will be off of the 2020 geography without split blocks unless we decide that it's necessary to split blocks.
I'm not saying you need to split blocks now. I'm saying when you compare it to 2010, when you find out how much it's either gone up or down each district, you need to have the accurate 2010 numbers, which were split blocks.
We could do that, but at the end of the day, right now, you're drawing off the 2020 data, which is accurate.
right. So what Brian's saying is that these numbers might not be as accurate as they are because they're coming off of old numbers. So once we get into it, those numbers should update and they should be closer.
Well, when we get our new numbers, whatever numbers those are, they're all close.
I don't know though that, and I just want to comment on that. I don't know that we're drawing off deviations from 2010. We're just taking 2020 data and drawing the maps from there. So I don't know if the deviation necessarily will matter, especially given the new laws that give us a little more leeway. So I don't know if it's worth it to go back to that personally. I would rather just take the data that we know is off the census and draw from there.
Let's look forward, not back. Yeah. Okay. Member Rowland.
Thank you, Chairman. So the ACS data showed District 6 losing 1,400 people. I'm kind of trying to catch my breath now. It says we're down 4,700. And I know Aurora, because they felt undercounted, was going to do their own special census. And given that, at least in West Chicago, we're heavily minority population there, and because of the threats that came along with the census effort last year, is there going to be challenges to this? Are those municipalities going to go, oh, come on, this number can't be right?
I haven't heard anything on West Chicago. Bert, that's like a legal question. Can we get a breakdown of, I know you're involved with the Aurora.
Yes.
Can we get a breakdown per city and see if, you know, West Chicago has been, you know, numbers have changed greatly or no?
Yes, we can. In fact, we just produced some, and I'll share this with you guys. We just produced over the weekend some data that we dug real deep into for the census for Aurora because of the almost 18,000 loss in population that the census says we lost. And we have a breakdown now of where that loss seemingly has come from. So we're sharing it with the mayor today. And Jim, if I could, I'll share it with you and then you can disperse it to the to the board members, and I'll share it with Josina and Zach too. And yes, we can't get the West Chicago numbers too.
You know, I just, West Chicago, I mean, obviously District 6 has 22%. We also look at the Addison area too, because that's our
Yeah.
largest
Pretty close there too.
Latino area. So could you look at District 1 also?
Yes,
Make sure.
yes,
Yeah, Bensonville.
And Addison and Bensonville, would that be okay?
yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Thank you, Chairman.
Again, I think it's something this committee's got to come up with and, you know, discussion. Do we want to get down, how close do we want the districts to be? I mean, what's our,
I think
as
it's closest, I mean, it's
close as possible? I mean, within 500, within 1,000? I mean, do we want to get that close? Because I think the closer we get, and Josina, you're the expert at this, the closer we try to get, then we're going to have to start splitting blocks again, right? I mean, that's the issue.
You'll either start splitting blocks or you'll start, to be frankly, a little bit unnecessarily moving blocks that should be with a certain community. But I think we can easily get within 1%.
Yeah.
Do a percent or vote, because I think the percent.
Well, what's that, 2,000, 1%, 2,000, 2,200? Well, this one says 2,200 at 1%.
I was told there'd be no math today. Well, again, do we want a percentage or do we want to take a look at it and see, get more information, then make that decision?
I think keeping communities together is more important.
I do too.
And so I think I would rather see a little more deviation if necessary between districts or slight, obviously within reason, but I think keeping communities cohesive is a priority for me.
Yeah, but I don't think like we see right now with 10,000 person difference between District 6 and District 2.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too big of a deviation.
Yeah, probably.
Chairman, it's Bert. Yeah, so communities of interest is a criteria that you certainly should look at, especially in your case when you're pretty close. I think, and again, I yield to Josina on this, but we're doing Chicago right now, and communities of interest are a very important factor in most communities. And since you're close, I think you can try to hold your communities of interest together and still get, closer to 1% or less. But it's going to take, and I was going to bring this up in a few minutes, but I'll do it now. Going forward, you're going to have to have board members sitting with each other and looking at the maps. And I've done this again in Chicago, and I'm sure Josina and Zach have done it elsewhere, where we have bordering board members sitting together and actually looking at the blocks and taking things away, because we don't know if a park is better in one district than another. Only you know. So it's going to take some involvement here with the board members.
That's going to be our next discussion. So,
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Redistricting committee timeline update. Obviously, before we got all this, that's the next step, and that's what we did in the past. Is now I'm going to ask. We'll send an email out to the board members to talk within your district. We'll send the maps of each district out to everybody, or obviously have to be the whole county, but we'll figure out a way of bordering districts. Start talking amongst yourselves on the changes you want to start, and then we have a baseline, and then we're going to have to go and then have some kind of workshops where we'll have to get people, like when we did it 10 years ago, we had the 6 committee members or 7 committee members there. 2 would go in at a time, 2 would be in another area. Once they got done, another board member would go in and come back out. And that's how we kind of did it. I mean, we'll have to figure out a way to do it here.
Right.
Good, member Chair.
Could we have a county map, like maybe put in the caucus room or something, just for
We
now?
have them.
I have all 7 of them sitting in my office. They're at your disposal whenever you need them.
Okay, just because,
Yeah.
sometimes we're sitting in there, it might be nice to just be able to go up and walk in and look at the whole county map and kind of,
Even in
we could
here,
even,
you got a
even
lot
if we
more.
could have a couple, we could maybe even, well, we probably can't write notes on it, but I don't want to break it up.
Well, I would. I mean, I would take a highlighter
We can
maybe,
write
and we'll
if we
get
can.
highlighters and
Well,
do something and-
Has to be there to make that, change, and we see where it goes, because
Yeah.
there's a reaction, there's a reaction, so something's.
I mean,
I
at
could look at it.
we kind of did that at the open house.
Yes, yes.
Remember Chavez and remember Rutledge, we kind of looked at it and said, well, what about this? What about that?
Right.
That's what it's going to have to be. It's going to have to give and take. And it's nice to say that until you actually have the consultant,
you know, move the line and then all of a sudden you see the totals change. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the big thing. It looks simple, but it's not once you see the
Right,
thing.
because
And Tom, I'm sorry,
Lose
We
my
can
old
create
number.
what is called a hub site we have, and it'll be an initiative where we can give each of you a login. And we can provide those maps that are hard copy. If they're digital maps, we can also put the aerial photos, so you can actually see if there's a park or get down to the detail. When you're talking
Okay.
the blocks, you're talking, you know, a neighborhood. So we can do those layers where you can flip on if you want to see the aerial, so you get more detail in how you're moving that line and what's being actually affected, as opposed to just a street center line with some parcels on it. At that large scale that we have on those big, so we can get down, you can see the detail of it.
That'd be
So we can
great.
create that area.
That'd be great. So I'm curious.
Did you say we should meet with members of our district, or the members from our district should meet with the bordering district?
Well, first I would talk to get your district together on the same page and say, hey, here's the map. What are you thinking? And then you start moving, because you might say, hey, I want to move it this way. Somebody says, I want to move it that way. Obviously, once you figure out you've got options, right? Well, can we do this? Can we do that? Then you have to go to that neighboring district and say, hey, we've come up with some ideas. What do you guys think? And they might have ideas too. So it's, you know, that'll be the first step, get the districts to talk together and then say, hey, here's what we want to do. Obviously, like, you know, District 2 is going to have to lose some. District 1 and District 6 have to gain some. So how do we do that? Obviously, it's difficult because of where the geography is. So obviously, if District 6 needs to gain some, we'd have to talk to District 5, District 4. I can't really go to District 1 because
So right now, like
Already down.
3 and 4 is 0 deviation, so the other districts are 1.
right.
All right.
But again, you could do other things where District 5 could pick some more up and District 6 could go, well, I mean, you could do a whole bunch of things there. But again, I think we all said we want to do geographic and community lines. So we don't want to, again, cut through a neighborhood, we talk about Army Trail or County Farm or 75th, somewhere where you have lines where it makes sense, not where we're, doing this jagged lines and stuff and carving out.
And just as a reminder, the Open Meetings Act number for this committee is 3, so no more than 3 members of the committee, sorry, 2 members of the committee should be together at any given time, please, discussing this item, especially if there's some maps posted. Please do be cautious about that.
With a 7-member, it's 2.
It's majority of a quorum, so majority of a quorum would be, so quorum is 4, 3 out of 4 is a majority, because you can't have half of a person.
Well, you can't, but that's not.
Well, it's messy.
So then how, Sheila and I would not be able to discuss District 6 together.
We too can, but we can't add Greg.
Yes, 2 can, but
2 can, but 3.
2 can, but you should not add the third.
You can have a third if it's not.
Greg, if it's not on the
Not a
district
committee
members.
member.
He's
Yeah.
not on the
Yeah,
committee.
true, Greg.
Yes, as long as they're not members of this committee.
Oh, okay.
This committee members are.
I was just worried about because you and I are together.
Member Rutledge, who's from District 6, I believe member Ozog's from District 4.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Member Chaplin from District 2, as I recall, member Krajewski from District 3, I believe member Pachowski from District 1, and member Chavez from District 5. as I recall.
Okay. So then we'll update the timeline and, I really would like to get this done the next month and a half. I mean, I'd like to get it done and ready to go by middle of October.
Mr. Chairman, is that something you'd like staff to work with Josina and Bert and them, and we'll come up with something to send to you guys?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And then if we wanted to come into a central place, is there a central place we could come into and do it?
Yeah, what it is, it'll be a hub site and you'll have a login and it'll be just a basic website. We'll put little squares or icons that go to each map. So we can do, like we had 7 maps or whatever it was. We can do 1 countywide, we can do 1 of each district. And then you.
But like if we worked with you, could we come into like the boardroom and have the big,
Yeah.
big up there and do it somewhere?
You can be at home, it's in the cloud, it's a website, it's locked down. So you'll be able to log on and then you'll be able to log on here and do the same thing.
Mr. Chairman, we can have a physical location for you as well. We'll find a place.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes physical might be a little better than trying to do stuff.
If we get developed prior to, like, say, the next meeting or something, I could do a quick demo, show you how to, how to do it. And it's very simple map. It'll be basic layers that you turn on and off. If you want to see the aerial underneath the geography, you'll be able to do that.
Okay, great. So we'll update that timeline and get it out to you. Again, now that we have the data, it's not as big. We can get moving quickly on this, so.
A question on that data, what can they draw now with what they have versus what's coming soon? I know that the next drill down, correct, Josina, for the data is sometime here in September. But what do you have now that will allow you to draw? And then what will that next layer of data, will you drill down even more, or will there be many changes with that second set of data? What can we expect?
I think the data set that you're referring to actually is the legacy file that was publicly announced to go out September 16th, but came out last month. So we have the block level data. The additional data that we might want to use that we just have no idea when it'll get released is the citizen voting age population numbers that we normally have in the decennial redistricting process, but we have gotten no information about when that set might come out, but that is not legally required to draw a map. So we do have the block level data broken down by race, broken down by voting age population, and those are the two primary tools that you use to draw a map.
Perfect.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Bert.
Yeah, hi, Josina's right. The CVAP information is interesting, but in our situation, really not helpful. I think you have all the information you need right now, and that actually down in your basement, I sat with Tom and on his big computer down there and got a lot of information early on before the census figures came out. So if you're looking for a place to go, I think you got it right there, to tell you the truth, downstairs.
I don't think they allow board members into the basement, do they? They don't take well to strangers down there.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of cool though. I learned a lot in a couple hours from Tom and I think Mary.
Okay. And Tom, the one thing that we need to add to these maps, we need to put the location of board members.
Yes.
You can put a star or a house or whatever, and forest preserve commissioners.
Yeah.
So we make that demarcation so we know when we start, you know, there's, I mean, that's the last thing we need is someone starts drawing lines going, hey, thanks, you drew me out of my district, you know. We already did it with Liz, but that's fine. No, I'm just kidding. But no, that if we can get that, that would help a lot too. Okay, go to open house update. Riveting, Jason?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, and I'm sorry, the date is escaping me off the top of my head, on a Wednesday night, we did from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Quite a few of you guys were present. We're happy with that. We only had 3 individuals from the community come in. However, the 3 that did come in had some good commentary and actually were very interested in the process. So I think it was very beneficial that we did it. And again, I think a few of them thought, oh, we're going to see all these new maps. And we explicitly put it out that that wasn't the case. And thank you to the communications team and Joan for getting that press release out. We explicitly said we just want to know, you know, what communities. So I thought it was a very nice event. Tom, thank you so much for getting the maps printed for us for that meeting. But I definitely think that'll be a good forum to use going forward with anything if we would like. I mean, you know, I understand that right now everything's going on. Not everybody wants to be in person, and I think that'll lead to our second topic, where I think we've come up with a secondary option for those who might not want to be in person. But did anybody have any questions for me about the open forum?
Yeah, I mean, the question of the committee is, 10 years ago, we did open houses in each district and showed the maps. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that with COVID. I mean, that's again up to the board members. Again, trying to find a location in your district and set that up. You know, we didn't have we didn't have the capabilities we did digitally that we had back then. So if anybody wants to have one, they can, but I don't know, again, are we going to have them and 2 people are going to show up, you know, and you spend all that time and you put a different location up. Do we want to do multiple ones here at the county? Maybe do one on a weekend, maybe do one at a night, you know, like 6 o'clock or something like that, where people can come to and do it. Unfortunately, I mean, it's just, who knows what's going to happen with COVID here as we come into the fall. Remember,
Could we do open houses like virtually, or does that not meet the same legal standards for an open house?
Well, open houses, I think we could do it. Virtual.
So this is what we did, and this was in conjunction with the state's attorney's office when we did this public forum or open house. We didn't call it a public forum. It was not an official open meeting act or anything like that. It was, here's maps set out, make your commentary, here's a sheet. So it was not an official meeting or anything like that. And when we had multiple board members here, we kept them intentionally not in a way that they could be deliberative. So I would again, I look to the state's attorney to disagree with me if I say otherwise, but if we were to do an online Zoom virtual, something like that, where there's a presentation, so long as you guys didn't have any deliberation and we truly just listened to public comment on it, and it was maybe a staff member, or we have Josina and Zach kind of lead that, I think it would be an acceptable legal standard. I could be wrong, but I defer to the state's attorney's office.
First, I have a question for Mr. Odelson, because he's more familiar with the redistricting law than I am. Bert, is there a requirement that counties conduct open houses with regards to mapping?
I don't believe so. I'll look at that, but I don't believe so.
That was
But-
my
Yeah.
question. So,
You know, it's a good idea to do some type of community input, because we do have the time now.
Well,
so just to be clear, there's no absolute requirement. It's not like there's a gun to your head, so to speak, that this needs to be done in a certain fashion. To the extent that you were receiving comment from the public, I believe that it could in theory be considered a meeting under the Open Meetings Act. If you're going to do them, you should notice them. If only just for, receipt of public comment, discussion regarding the board, because what I don't want to happen is, not that you take any final action, but to get a flurry of people objecting to whether or not this is a meeting. And as much as I'd love to respond to, say, 10 to 12 complaints of the Attorney General as to the merits of this, I think it's a lot easier if you just notice it. And frankly, it gives you a good framework to work discussion around. You can all talk about what you want to talk about, and to the extent you want to make any changes to maps while you're there, you can always sort of make a running, keep a running tally or a running version of it.
But if like District 1 wanted to do a virtual town hall on remapping, they could do, the 3 members could do it with staff. We could,
Yes.
and just to be safe, anybody could notice it, and then we would just promote it obviously in those areas with all the regular districts. If we want to do that, if that's easy
Yes,
enough.
provided there's not a majority of the quorum of a member of this body. The only one who would run into problems with that would be District 6, because both you and Member Rutledge are members of the body, and that would mean 2 of the 3. So you would have no more, you couldn't have, say, Member Chaplin show up at that meeting because she's particularly interested in the District 6 boundaries, because that would constitute an open meeting.
Okay, well, that's some of the legal stuff we can get into, but if we want to do that, once we move forward, we get a tentative map that everybody's, we can do some virtual, or we can do a couple here. I mean, everybody think about it. We don't know what's going to happen in a week, let alone, a month. So, but we want to, again, try to get as much input as we can to make sure no one says, well, we didn't get a chance to put any public comment in on that. Okay, online comments?
Yeah, so you'll also see, I passed this out, what it is it's, we actually created an online public submittal portion on the website for redistricting. Up there currently are all the 6 current district maps as well as the countywide. Yeah, thank you, GIS, for getting us that, and IT for creating that website for us. But what it is, it's an online form saying, okay, here's my name, here's where I live, here's some comments on it. If you actually read, there was some actually pretty substantive comments. We got about 20 comments. You'll see 19 of them. 1 was removed because it was mine, and it was just testing the software. So just to be honest, that's we had 20 submissions, but mine didn't count because all it said was test. But there was some interesting commentary on there, and there is some things that's something that we can maybe take into consideration, whatever you guys feel is necessary. But that will be running. We'll keep that up until we switch to, here's the new maps. We'll leave out the old maps so they can do a comparison side by side. But we'll remake it so that forum is available where we can hear those public comments. And this was kind of our, due to COVID, here was our way to people a little bit more interaction and ability to give public comment.
And I think that will help too. Member Desart?
Thank you, Chairman. Could we send out another press release if one hasn't been done already to alert our constituents that this online comment is available to them?
So in the initial press release for the open house, this was actually in there as well with the website saying, hey, if you're not comfortable about coming in, we launched both on the exact same day. That's why they went out together. You're more than welcome to submit online. I mean, I believe if I remember the news clips afterwards, I think that was in there actually with the link in too. So I believe it was in the Daily Herald. I could be wrong in the publication. But I do know.
Excellent, but I was just wondering if we could do another press release to remind people that this exists, so we could put it out on our own social media.
Yeah, I mean, we can. My only concern is that we had so much confusion. Last time people thought these were the new maps. Can we wait until we get the new maps drawn? Because if we send it out, people will go, well, what's changed on this? We mean it's the old maps. Why do I don't want to see the old maps. I want to see the new maps. So
Yeah,
we'll-
that's an excellent point, but listening to the public before the new maps come out might be productive as well, because once the new maps come out, their comments won't necessarily have as much weight to be able to change them at that point.
You're gonna have proposed maps that you're gonna put out?
We won't have proposed maps for a while. We can send a reminder out stating that as the county is drawing new maps, the old maps are up. If you have any comments, again, before they start, the process, fully, we'd seek your input.
I'll tell you what, we're gonna.
Absolutely, yeah, we can make that clear that these are the old maps. What do you think about them? How should they be changed? And yeah, just state that right there. These are the old maps.
Mr. Chairman, we're putting out the district newsletters soon. How about if we put this item in there so that you have an item that you can cut and paste and repeat in your own network if you'd like, but it will go to all of our newsletter recipients.
Yeah, thanks, Joan. Perfect, thanks.
That goes direct to folks' mailboxes so then they can click right from there, okay?
Okay, does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Question on this online comments before we move on. Are we vetting these comments for kind of how we feel as a committee, or are we sending them to Josina to kind of incorporate, or what's the process of how we're handling these?
I think we're gonna give them to each district and let them
Okay,
decipher
so
it.
just gonna be divided by district and, okay, got it.
And I'll continue to update you guys as submissions come in. It's been a week since we got our last submission.
And some of these we've heard. I mean, some of these are just recaps, but again, the more input we can get before we go, more better it is.
Okay.
Any old business?
I just want to kind of address the forest preserve situation. I think we might want to discuss a little bit as a committee, if we have a different map, what's kind of our goal as far as how we're going to handle that? I just fear that we're going to have a lot of voter confusion. I'm not really in favor of this process, but I think it's already been put into play. But are we going to consult with that whatsoever, or what are your thoughts?
I don't even know, what is the forest preserve law? I don't know.
I mean, membership, before I ask our attorney, so I'll get your input. Yeah.
So my understanding is that the Forest Preserve is working on a map. And, if they draw, I don't think technically they have the authority to do their own map. So they can't, there's nothing that they can submit that's going to be changed. But I think they were concerned because this committee was kind of stalled, so they wanted to get going on it. So they're going to be working on it. So if they come up with a map, we might look at their map and say, we like their map, and we might adopt their district. I don't know. I'm just saying, that's a possibility. But whatever map, my understanding is that they put together right now is not a legal map because they don't have the authority to put together a map. And I don't know, Connor, is that correct? I mean,
Yeah.
It was the position of my office that the Forest Preserve District does not have the authority legally to adopt a map,
Right.
which is in any way, shape, or form different than the map you lawfully adopt.
that's right.
The statute says that the districts are to be drawn basically identical to the county board districts, and you guys draw the districts for the county board. I guess whether or not they have the statutory authority to even engage in the map making process is also questionable in my mind, but.
Other members of the public, so.
So can I just make a suggestion that they have their map, but they go through the formal process that every other person that has some input on the map would go through, like through public comment? I just don't want these maps to add to an already somewhat complicated process and add to confusion for the voters, which I think is highly probable.
Well, I mean, I just want to comment on it, that this committee has not been stalled. This committee and our members have said we wanted to wait until the census numbers came out. They came out a few weeks ago. Josina and her group put the geography together and have started the process. I mean, so again, if we were doing ACS numbers and doing that, but from my understanding, this committee and everybody else, they wanted to wait until the census numbers came out. The legislation was changed. We have until December 31st. I don't want to wait that long. But now that we have the numbers, Josina and her group has done the geography, has done everything over. Now we're going to start, and it's going to be a quicker process. We don't want to go too quick because we want to make sure we get input, but we want to get going on it because there could be problems. I mean, Bert, what happens if we put a map together and we approve it end of October, 1st November, and we get sued? I mean, what's the problem on that? I mean,
There's no problem. I would prefer, as we've discussed, Jim, getting this done as quickly as possible, not to exclude the public, but to include the public as quickly as possible. And then if we get sued, we have time to litigate. I mean, there are suits going on throughout the United States right now that we're monitoring as far as the redistricting process, as far as CVAP goes, things like that. So I don't think you've been stalled at all. I mean, we've talked a number of times. Connor and I have talked a number of times, and Jason. So and Zach, and we've had conferences with Zach. So we're right on top of it. And I again, I'd like it to proceed as quickly as possible, so you allow for any lag time in litigation. And as far as the Forest Preserve goes, Connor is right on. They have no authority to draw their own map. It's on the board members sitting right here to do the map.
and the only other person who has the authority to draw a map is the county board chairman, right?
Yes, and it's my understanding he's said, no, he's not doing that, and it's up to you guys to do it.
Okay. Again, I know people were frustrated with the timeline. We really couldn't put a timeline forward until we got the numbers.
Right.
So everybody likes each other because once the board members get together and start going, we're probably going to meet weekly on this.
No, and I appreciate that. I think I was one of the ones that emailed you to respectfully ask that we move up the timeline. And I want to say thank you, Chairman Zay, for taking the feedback that you received from us. I think this meeting, as soon as you got the data, you scheduled this meeting. And so I think you've been exceptionally responsive and I appreciate it. So
You
thank
did
you.
slip me a 20 at the
But that's okay, right?
I mean, she's expensive. You just gave me a beer. I mean, that's all I needed. That's right.
You usually do work for beer.
I do, and you do. Now I gotta open a file.
So yeah, we'll get going on this. We'll get the stuff out. And again, once the board members work together, we might be doing workshops. We might be coming in and seeing Tom and setting up times and get going. Because again, we want to get this out there. Again, we're not, until we actually draw the lines and you see how this works, it'll go quickly. And again, once we all get together, and again, therell be some votes, there'll be some fighting. I mean, there will be some fighting on areas because, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose, I want to gain this. I want to keep this community together. It's discussions we'll have to have. There'll have to be some give and take, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Did we do old business? Any new business? No, hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Okay, thank you, everybody.